Hello and welcome to the Team VVV podcast for all your weekly racing game rambles. I'm Martin and joining me as ever is Kevin.
Hi guys.
Alan.
Hello viewers.
And Ed.
Hello everyone.
As always, if you enjoy the podcast, do leave us a like and subscribe. It really helps support what we do. And this week we are giving away another code for Rock and Racing Off-Road on the PlayStation 4. So do check out the website for more details on that. So obviously this week's big release in the world of racing games is Flat Out 4 Total Insanity. We will be covering that in more detail though in a separate team chat. That should be up on the day of release, which is this Friday, all going well. So do check that out if you want to find out more. So really, I guess the other big topic at the moment in racing games is, of course, Milestone yet again. So we recently had the reveal of MXGP 3 and Gravel. Still makes me laugh. But now they've announced MotoGP 17 coming in June. So I think we were all expecting this, but I was quite surprised they announced it so soon after Gravel and MXGP 3. You know, let those games breathe a bit. And also, interesting trailer. They're definitely going for something different there with the baby thing. What are your guys' reactions to that?
Well, I mean, it's a teaser trailer. I think the first thing is that it comes out in June, so it's not long now. I've not seen anything of the game yet, but also it doesn't use the Unreal 4 engine. And had MotoGP been reviewed 4 weeks before MXGP 3, no one would have cared because no one knew about Unreal 4 engine. But to release now, obviously they couldn't include Unreal 4 because there are some games that were already in development before they were able to apply the new engine to it. So the expectation is for all of us is that yes, MotoGP 18 will likely have Unreal 4 technology in there as well. So there is that sort of slight disappointment that people have had. However, they do say that they've managed to get their own graphics engine optimized to run at 60 frames per second.
That was coming on.
Do you know what? When I saw that, I was like, finally, we've not had a 60 frames per second MotoGP game for, 8 years this year. 9 and 10. It was MotoGP 7, 8 years. It was 9, 10, wasn't it? That had 60 frames on it.
It says a lot that they're advertising that as one of the main selling points.
Well, I mean, for them it is a significant step forward in terms of polish. It will look a lot better, a lot more polished. And I think what was surprising is looking at the screenshots that there's not a massive reduction in terms of the graphics. I mean, don't get me wrong, they weren't mind-blowing anyway. But the fact that they've got them running at 60 frames with no obvious change is a good thing. And maybe they've learned some tricks from the Unreal 4 engine that they've applied to their own graphics engine to get it working. But either way, I mean, MotoGP. What can people expect from MotoGP? I mean, it's going to have all the bikes from this season and all the tracks. So that's what you expect from a MotoGP game, as long as it has nice replays and it handles well. And there's various little tweaks and improvements throughout. Then it would just be another solid addition. But of course, it is being released on the 15th of June, which is bang in the middle of E3. It is. Every year it's released at this point, and you don't see it until the week of E3. So the videos for it are competing with everything you can think of. But either way, I wasn't keen on the last one. I wasn't keen on the way the bikes understeered quite a bit. I mean, if I say I probably had the most fun on MotoGP 13 in terms of the recent bike examples, but recent MotoGP examples. I played a fair bit of 14 as well, 15 maybe, but not so much 16.
They seem to be going a bit back to basics this year because obviously they've dropped the whole Valentino Rossi license from last year. So I'm assuming then there's no Monza Rally, there's no ranch racing or anything like that. It's a very back to basics MotoGP game this year.
Yeah, which we kind of expected, didn't we? But we was hoping that the game would utilize the Unreal Engine 4, and that would perhaps save it in some respects, you know, because it is going to have a lot less interesting content for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
my concern a bit.
disappointing that it's not Unreal Engine 4.
It's going to have less content than last year's MotoGP game, and it's going to look worse than MXGP 3.
But it does run at 60 frames, so it's the only sort of thing that's
The only
really
person that cares about that in the world is
feature.
Alan.
No, not just Alan. There's a few more included. And,
There's a lot that frame rate does.
Yeah, I know.
We don't see it enough on console, so it's good to see. You know, it's just another step forward for Milestone, isn't it? So it's good to see. And like you say, Alan, you know, we will expect MotoGP 18 to utilize the Unreal Engine 4. Whether that means 60 frames remains to be seen, but we certainly will see increased.
They can't move They can't move backwards. Once they move to 60 frames, it would be a backward step to go back to 30. I think they know that. And I think the one thing I always say is, look at what your competitors are doing on the market. You know, Project Cars, Gran Turismo, Dirt 4, they're all running at 60 frames on console. You know, if you look at Dirt Rally compared to Sebastian Loeb, again, Dirt Rally runs at 60 frames. You know, it makes a huge difference to the fluidity and the input and the action and your perception. So I think they know they need to match competitors on the market, and that means improving their game. And hopefully Unreal will give them the chance to do that. But having said that, it's good that they've made that progress this year. And I look forward to seeing what progress they have made on the overall engine, including always refinements and developments to the physics.
Sorry, when you do have a new engine, you know, the temptation is always to push the graphics. You know, we see with MXGP 3, you know, people have seen that and have said, well, there's too many dust particle effects. And that's really a sort of developer thing to put in, isn't it? To really sort of show off your graphics, you know, your new engine. And, you know, they have to sort of resist the temptation, I guess, with MotoGP 18 and try and hit that 60 frames, that magical figure there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they want to. They can't keep people happy, can they? I mean, I've seen lots of dust plumes coming up when it's very dusty and it's very dry. It really depends on the conditions. So, I mean, note that it changes when it's muddy and wet, and there is dynamic weather in there as well. So, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those situations where they can't win sometimes. They try to do something new and exciting and cool, and then people want it to be like real life, and so they want things altered. And it's the same with the jumps right now as well. You know, some people are not happy with the bikes jumping too far, but on the other hand, you know, you've got to cater for players that want bikes to jump higher and faster and everything. You know, but having said that, it's about finding a balance, and that's what everything is about. It's finding a balance that keeps. You're never going to keep everybody happy, but if you can keep the majority of people happy, then that's the main thing.
Yeah. They did also mention PS4 Pro enhancements, so again, you do wonder how that will compare.
I think it will follow the ride. I think it will follow the ride 2. You know, it'll be what did they do? 30 frames per second checkerboard on ride 2. It will be interesting actually, to see what the frame rate is. Whether they do decide to go for. One, do they manage 60 frames on the base PS4 hardware and Xbox? Yeah. You know, will they manage that? And two, you know, what kind of checkerboard rendering will they go for? Is it possible to do 60 frames with checkerboard rendering on the PS4 Pro? I mean, that'll be interesting.
We're getting this massive cluster of milestone games again, though, because you've got MXGP 3 in May, you got this in June, and you got Gravel sometime in the summer. It's just a big pile-up of milestone games again, which is similar to what we had last year.
Yeah, I mean, Gravel is just one of those games, isn't it, that you kind of wish they're holding it back until early next year, really, you know, with so many racing games.
This year, given this year is the year of racing games. Having
said that, Gravel is such a different game compared to what it's up against that there really is nothing else like that on the market. You know, so if someone walks in, they say, I don't want to play a simulation, I want to play an arcade racing game. Well, we've got Gravel. There's no rival to it, you know. So Gravel, you love it, Martin. At the end of the day, you do. And at the end of the day, you know, that's it. That's what people are going to have to choose. So there you have it. Busy bees at Milestone, I tell you. Busy bee.
So talking of big releases this year, obviously we have Gran Turismo Sport, which still doesn't have a release date. We'd love to hazard a guess on that one. But it turns out you'll be able to play it sooner rather than later, as there's a closed beta coming soon, or at least in America. It is coming to Europe later, but yeah, what can we say about that? They haven't really given much in the way of details on it, as far as I know.
Well, I think what we can say is, given how poorly it was running at the launch event early last year, it needed a lot of work online. It looked a total mess in terms of the replay, very, very amateur. The whole thing in terms of the way it's presented. So they need to check stability and everything, and not have the same thing happen of what happened to Driveclub. It's a shame that they're doing it only in the US, not doing US and Europe at the same time. To me, that's
time zone differences.
Might be, but it also sounds to me a bit of a missed opportunity in terms of what happens when lots of people from Europe play lots of people in America. That's, you can't test that, and that's when a lot of problems tend to happen as well. So
you want to stress test
lag.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, it's good to do it. So it's good news. It's just a shame that they've done it in this way. I think it would have been better to have at least had it so that the Europeans knew what ours is a week after. It's a bit fairer. But either way, it means nothing, does it? There's no sign of it being released, and still no new tracks and no new, not a great deal in the way of new cars or anything, apart from GT Vision.
Yeah, and Tag Heuer.
Exactly. Wow. Exactly. Really looking forward to that.
The most
groundbreaking. Watch those clocks and just think, Matt, wow, amazing.
By far the most groundbreaking new feature in a racing game this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am so excited about that. What a timepiece.
This beta, I mean, wasn't this supposed to launch spring 2016 originally?
Probably.
It was. The game was due out around January 2016. Anyway, they at the when was it? It was late 2015. The Tokyo Game Show or something. They were showing it and saying it's coming out early next year, and everyone was like, "Wow, yay! It's coming out early next year. That's a nice surprise. We never thought it'd be out for years." And of course, then it doesn't come out. So.
Yeah. I mean, based off feedback from this closed beta, we may well see a further delay. If it's not good, it could delay till next year. You just never know with Gran Turismo. It's one of those franchises that never ceases to amaze me in terms of the lengthy delays it suffers time and time again. And originally it was a game that was very quick in development, and they could get a decent game out there very quickly. But as it seems like more and more as time goes on, as each iteration comes out, it just seems to suffer more and more delay. And we when GT6, we moaned about it not coming out on the PS4, and in 2017 now we're still waiting for the first Gran Turismo game on the PlayStation 4. And how many have we had from Forza? The Horizon and the Motorsport series. It's going to be the 5th game this year, and Gran Turismo haven't had one game, so it's unbelievable.
The more it's delayed, the higher people's expectations are going to be as well.
The funny thing is that people's expectations are higher, but also the vibe around the game diminishes every year. It's very negative now. The feedback around Gran Turismo,
and even on the Gran Turismo fan forums, it's very negative. So it's
which is always people are just sick of trailers. So let's see if the beta's good, then it could be the thing that really turns everybody around, and everybody's going to say, "Wow, I can't wait for this." But it would be nice to see a new track on the beta, something we haven't seen before. It's probably just going to be Nordschleife again, but it'd be nice to see something different.
And it's worth noting as well that once this podcast goes out, the beta is actually starting tomorrow, so it's very soon, isn't it? And I'm not sure how much actual footage we'll see from the closed beta. I'm not sure what arrangements they have regarding showing content, but it'd be nice to see footage and just see what it's all about. But as I understand it, it's very limited. They're going to be sort of rotating cars and tracks on a daily basis, but we just don't know how big a pool of tracks and cars are actually going to give players. So who knows?
No. Well, I think it's safe to say we're anticipating Project Cars 2 more this year, if anything. Of course, we've had the recent reveal of some new racing cars. So we've got some vintage Nissans in there. I've got a 1988 Nissan GTP ZX Turbo. So 1,000 horsepower prototype endurance racer. And then you've also got a 1994 Nissan 300 ZX Turbo. Again, this is what really sets Project Cars apart for me, that kind of focus on motorsport and high-spec racing cars compared to, obviously, Forza and Gran Turismo, which are more inundated with road cars, I think that will appeal to a lot of people. Is that doing it for you, Alan? You're a big motorsport junkie.
It is, actually. There's still quite a few cars I'd like to see there from historic Le Mans racing and stuff like that. And there's a lot of historic cars I'd like to see. There is a wealth of awesome motorsport over the ages that, I would like to see expanded upon. But I was one of the, I was so happy that their focus in the first game was on tracks, not just on cars.
Yeah.
Because I don't need hundreds of cars. A lot of people are just car collectors now. But with tracks, you always want somewhere, when you find a car you like, you always want to find a new challenge for that car, a new circuit. But not only that, you want to drive on circuits that are appropriate to that car. And so many games contain, 20 circuits, but 10 of them that car wouldn't run on. Gran Turismo would be a good example. You wouldn't run a Formula One car on, what was it, a San Francisco type or Chicago, wherever it was. There'd be jumps and everything.
Yeah, same
totally.
Nürburgring.
Yeah, totally inappropriate for certain types of car and certain types of series. So when you look at the tracks that they've got in Project Cars, and you say, yes, I can run a complete WEC series, but I could run I could run old cars as well on certain circuits and so on. They would fit perfectly well. So there's a really great selection there, and I'm really looking forward to, to digging up prime examples of automotive excellence from the motorsport historical world.
Absolutely. So just a contrast to Project Cars, this is on completely the opposite end of the spectrum. There's a new update coming to Rocket League, which we say it all the time, but it really is the gift that keeps on giving. Like, so many free updates have been added to this game since it was launched. So this one introduces dynamic breakable floors, something different. Obviously, Kevin, you're a resident Rocket League fan. Are you excited for this free update?
Yes and no. No, because it gets away from the sort of traditional Rocket League formula, which I so love. Often I find with these sort of mods, they're quite hit and miss. But it does serve a good sort of training purpose, because this mode is all about aerial play. As you hit the ground in your opposing team's half, you open up holes essentially in the ground once you hit a hexagonal segment twice. And then the idea is to hit the ball in that hole that you've just created to score a goal. So it's all about keeping the ball off the ground. So it does serve a sort of a training exercise, if you like, to keep the ball up in the air, which is pretty hard to do. So in that sense, it is a good sort of thing to do just to practice your sort of aerial abilities. But I find with these sort of add-ons, like the basketball one, I didn't particularly enjoy too much. Ice hockey was okay for 5 minutes, and then I sort of went back to the more traditional stuff on the sort of rectangular maps. I don't tend to get on with the octagonal maps so much, I find, but it's good that they're still supporting the game. Of course, they're talking about content coming out in 2 years' time, so they're not going to add a sequel anytime soon.
No.
So yeah, it's okay. It'd be interesting to see how it plays, and I certainly will check it out and have a go. And we have another Rocket League fan in Ed, so I just wondered what you made of this, Ed.
Well, initially, when I first looked at it, I just thought to myself, what is going to be like at lower level play? All the people that are sort of down in like the prospect sort of ranks, the ball's just going to be bouncing around most of the time. These are people that cannot hit it when it's in the air.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be scoring goals constantly. I don't know. I'm wondering how it's actually going to play out. It's going to be a bit weird. But this update's going to be very interesting for Rocket League as well, not just because of the new game mode coming in, but also the new ranking system and changes that they're bringing into how people match up as well. So it should get a lot more competitive as well. So it'd be quite interesting.
Also, one thing I just wanted to pick up on, obviously last week we mentioned the launch of the Nintendo Switch. There's since been a new trailer for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I must admit, I can't believe that's not a launch title. That really does say to me the Switch was released far, far too early.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, they needed far more at launch, didn't they? But I guess on the one hand, they've had quite a bit of bad press as well for various different reasons on the Switch. And I think it sort of counters any of that. It's just another thing. And also, if they spread it out, people like to go and buy something new. So they needed to hold a game back just to sort of hold one back a month sort of thing, just to keep people going. Because that way then people are all forced to buy Zelda and then all forced to buy Mario and so on. So there is that.
Scraping the barrel a bit though, when there's only, is it 5 launch titles, I think, something like that?
It's going to be a struggle into E3, isn't it? But let's see what E3... E3 is very important for Nintendo because they're going to do their little treehouse thing or whatever, and then they're going to explain. I think, you know what, they're probably going to say, look, here's a new Animal Crossing, here's a new Pokemon, then the world will go crazy. They'll probably say, you know, they'll have the new Mario game there, and they'll probably have something else surprising, whether it's a Star Fox or whether it's a Donkey Kong game or a Metroid game. There'll be something from their library.
Or an F-Zero game?
You know what? It is. I can't see F-Zero happening at the moment. The problem with F-Zero is it has a bit of an identity crisis. You see, Nintendo made F-Zero games for years, but then Sega made F-Zero GX, which was amazing. They've made the best F-Zero game. And Nintendo don't want the ongoing definition of their games to have been shaped by Sega. Because if you think about it, people want a sequel to F-Zero, which has to look kind of like that. Otherwise, it's going to regress to some flat thing that you had in the N64 version, which would just look dull and boring. So they definitely, it's a brand that they should go back to, but I don't know if Nintendo are in the right place to do it. They certainly haven't been in the right place to produce quality sequels to Star Fox. I mean, everything produced by Nintendo has been pretty poor on that range. Argonaut's original game was stunning and had incredible soundtrack, and it's a real shame that Nintendo treated Argonaut the way they did. So, it's there's a few titles that they get, but there's a few that they don't get. And we'll have to see what happens at E3. But, Animal Crossing and Pokemon alone.
We love a bit of Pokemon.
Loving that Pokemon. And people are just going to buy it for that purpose. Ed loves the Pokemon. My goodness me.
I do love Pokemon.
There you go. See, Ed's going to be buying a Switch before you know it.
But if if the main Pokemon series goes to the Switch, then I'll have to get one.
There you go.
That's the only thing that would make me buy one.
See, I hate Pokemon with every fibre in my being.
I've never got it. I've just never got it, and I try.
That franchise is responsible for ruining my childhood. I'm telling you.
Oh, responsible for many happy times in my childhood.
Many happy times. Yeah. Well,
I was obsessed with Star Wars, and then Pokemon came out, and that was it. But we're slightly off topic. We're talking about Mario Kart. I'm finding it hard to get excited about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because I quite enjoyed Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, but let's be honest, it's the same game, just slightly prettier and with some extra content. But it is it's just basically Mario Kart 8 Definitive Edition, or as they call it, Deluxe. I think it could be good on the handheld. That's the only.
Could be good on the handheld. Do you know my problem with Mario Kart is that it used to be about Mario in a go-kart, and on the original SNES and the N64, it was Mario and his friends in a go-kart, and I liked it when it was those. That was just it. Now it's Mario in random vehicle, and it's just got more and more sort of outrageous to an extent.
I think it jumped the shot when the Mercedes product placement came in on Mario Kart 8. I just didn't it.
Yeah, it just wasn't Mario Kart to me. So, I like you say, let's wait and see. First driving game, but we're expecting Redout coming soon, possibly Dirt 4, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. But as I say, it could become the handheld for racing gamers. So let's wait and see.
We've already got Fast RMX, which, if it's anything like Fast Racing Neo, is a very good alternative to F-Zero.
And I guess in many ways, RMX compares to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the fact that it's just like a remix or rehash. So, it's understandable launch titles, I guess.
Yeah, even so, like I'm trying to find a compelling reason to buy the Switch, and I can't find one at the moment.
Yeah.
Just when the launch lineup is that pitiful, frankly.
But we do know the guys that do the Fast Racing Neo, they're already working on another title for the Switch. So
I think Nintendo should just hand over the license to F-Zero to them.
Yeah, many people said that. Yeah,
it makes sense. Do it, Nintendo. It's the right thing, and it will make you money. So one thing I think we're lacking at the moment is new PlayStation VR games. We need some more of those. So we had Dirt Rally VR recently, but of course the main launch title was Driveclub VR, and of course the VR headset's only just come back in stock now, so lots of people might be wanting to buy it. Our reviews now on the website, and I must admit, mixed feelings all round, unfortunately. I would say definitely buy this game if you want to get a headache.
Yeah, I mean,
it comes pre-packed with paracetamols.
Yeah, I mean, I've had good days and bad days on Driveclub VR. I had a very bad day, and it really put me off the game for a long time. I just got a bad headache, and I felt heavy-headed afterwards and a bit dizzy, and it was just some days I could get on there and feel perfect. I had no problem at all. Driveclub gives an incredible experience of being in a car. It's the closest anything's come. Unlike Dirt Rally, I felt no difference between the standard screen and the VR mode when playing Driveclub. It just felt authentic. The car had a certain weight and size and feeling to it that was very authentic, and I was really impressed with what it was like in the car. And the only thing that let it down was that resolution issue, but it was such an issue that a lot of people can't play it, and you can't recommend it to people as a VR experience that they try because of the issues it faces.
Yeah, I feel like it highlights the potential of VR racing games. Definitely, I do think that it does show how much it can revolutionize the genre, but at the same time, it does also highlight the current limitations of the hardware. Unfortunately, it's been stretched a bit too far, I think, in this case.
Yeah. It's I think it would have been nice to have seen what Evolution could have done if they hadn't have been shut down. Remember that this game was finished probably 6 or 7 months before PlayStation VR was even released. So
that's the thing. There was such an opportunity, I think, to improve it on PS4 Pro, at least. That's the one game I really expected to have a really drastic improvement, because let's face it needs it, but nothing.
No, well, that's it. The studio's gone now, and so that's it. So it got kicked out the door. I got the feeling that it was, I don't know if the PlayStation Morpheus hardware was different when it was first developed, but I'm sure it seemed slightly lower resolution to me when I was playing earlier development builds than the final resolution of the final thing. And I wonder if there may have been a change, hence it was designed for a slightly lower res headset. I could be completely wrong there, but I do remember playing early test versions of the Morpheus, and the hardware improved rapidly, and the visuals that it could achieve as we came to launch on PlayStation VR. But either way, I think it was a good example, but missed opportunity for Sony.
It's ironic though, because the best experience I ever had in Driveclub VR was just sitting in the car while it's stationary and looking around the interior. Then once it stopped moving, oh god, headache.
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. I had some very good runs in it in the McLaren and racing around Scotland and stuff, and was really impressed with it, but there were just times when you turn your head and you couldn't focus very well on scenery, and it would just give me a headache because I couldn't focus well enough. So,
but it's just there's something so satisfying about being able to glance at your mirrors like intuitively.
Oh, wonderful! Being able to look over and see either side, and in a way, it's a really good tool for people learning how to drive, because they've got to get used to looking out their mirrors and stuff like that. So I suppose I do it a lot because I have the triple screens, and so if you ever watch the triple screens, you'll always see me looking over at my mirrors and what's going on around me, because you have to be very aware. But it shows the potential of the VR, but it also shows the limitations of PlayStation VR. And at the moment, PlayStation VR has potential, but it's limited, isn't it, in terms of the racing genre? So I hope we see more racing games, but at the moment, it doesn't. There's not a lot on the horizon.
No, it does leave us with the conclusion really that Dirt Rally is probably the one to go for at the moment. Although it's not a standalone game, unlike Driveclub VR, it is obviously an upgrade for the existing game. So you're saying you didn't like the interior camera quite as much as in Dirt Rally?
For me, it felt good. Dirt Rally, it was good, but I can't quite put my finger on it. There was just something about, and I need to play Dirt Rally more with a wheel because I've been playing it with a controller. But there was just something about the feeling of being in the car in Driveclub that just felt perfect. It just felt like I was really there, and I
felt a disconnect with Dirt Rally. It didn't seem that I was, handling a ton of metal. Just there's a certain disconnect there. I felt.
Yeah, there was definitely something different with Dirt Rally, and so I think
was it more like a detail in the cockpit compared to Driveclub? Because Evolution do a phenomenal job when it comes to that.
I think it was. It's very difficult to say at this stage. I'd need to actually play them both and do a comparison. But I will say that everything. My best experience is still Project Cars on the Vive, because it was just everything in Project Cars was so 3D as well. It's so to scale it, and it was obviously the resolution was far higher. The only thing that let that down, of course, was the frame rate wasn't smooth enough, and you really need frame rate on the VR. But hopefully, I'll be testing Project Cars 2 on VR when that's released, and that will be far more optimized. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with PlayStation VR. It's we always knew that the PSVR was an entry-level product, but let's just see when developers get the hang of it. I've spoken to developers recently who say they're learning new tricks all the time, and we will have some coverage on the channel of Ace Combat 7. Looking forward to that as well.
I got to say, I was very impressed with Resident Evil 7, what they managed to squeeze out of that PlayStation VR tech. So it is possible, as long as you've got the right talent there and technology, to really squeeze the maximum out of this new hardware. We don't want to write off this tech for racing games this generation, because there certainly is potential there. As long as you have the know-how to unlock its potential, it certainly can impress.
That's my worry a bit though, because for a lot of people, Driveclub VR will be their first ever racing game experience. So if they have a really bad experience, it will potentially put them give them a negative lasting impression of VR racing games.
Yeah, exactly. That is the shame, isn't it, of it? Because like you say, people will be put off perhaps if they just sample Driveclub and maybe write off racing games in general, based off that experience. So it's unfortunate we got off to a bit of a rocky start.
But yeah, we just need something to redeem it now.
I think also if there is anyone listening to this who's on the fence about getting a PlayStation VR, and maybe hearing the talk about Driveclub and thinking, well, maybe it's not worth it. I think Ace Combat 7 is a really good game to possibly get it for. I found it amazing when I got in a cockpit of a plane and the heads-up display comes up, and it's like it's actually a heads-up display that's actually that distance from your face. It's quite the experience, and I didn't find it as jarring as Driveclub VR either.
No,
despite the fact you're in a plane flying very high in the sky and doing loop-de-loops all the time.
It was incredible. It was very intense, and I have to say, Ed, I don't know how you didn't feel rough after your experience, because your head was all over the place apparently, looking around. I'm very focused. I'm focused bang on my heads-up display. Because if I'm looking at the world spinning around and around and around in the background, then I feel terrible. But it really is an incredible feeling of being in a cockpit, and that's what I mean. It's things like that where you play it and say, "Wow, VR is the future." And I will just say that there's another game coming for PSVR called The Persistence, which is being developed in Liverpool by a new studio called Fire Sprite. And it looks very cool. It looks very much like Resident Evil. So that's going to be one I'm going to hand over to Kevin, I think, because it looks far too scary for me.
Right, I think it's time now for our Q&A this week. Looks like quite a short one actually this time. Just got a couple of questions here. So first up on Facebook, this one's from Jake Annett. He's asking, anything on Wreckfest PS4 release? Haven't heard anything for a while. You and us both, my friend. Nothing's been announced since it was first announced on consoles last year. All we know is it's coming out at some point this spring. It's early spring, so in theory it could be out next week.
Yeah.
But it probably won't be.
I think my notes here say early spring for consoles, but perhaps earlier for PC. But so who knows? Maybe PC will be released a few weeks before the console versions, but hopefully soon. Hopefully within the next few months, certainly.
I'd imagine it'd be both before E3, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that.
Well, I mean, the problem is that they've not shown anything. There's been no trailers, so you need at least an 8-week lead up to release it. So I mean, I can't see it being released. Well, at the moment, I can't see it being released yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe a trailer will be released tomorrow, and it will change everything. But we'll just wait and see.
Yeah, it's one of those games where there's long periods of silence, and then suddenly they come out of nowhere with a massive update, and the game's completely changed beyond recognition. So they'll probably announce a release date, and it'll be out like the following week or something, knowing them.
Yeah.
Or at least on PC. I guess it has been. I mean, it's been on early access now since 2013.
Wow.
I can't think of many games that have been in early access that long.
No, a long time, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
Very long
Playing it 2013. Yeah.
But yes, we are very much looking forward to that. And then over on Twitter, Fernando says, why is the market flooded with Sims? Where's the arcades like Burnout or Sega Rally? Well, Flat Out 4's out this week, so there's your answer.
Yeah, Flat Out 4. You've got Gravel coming as well, and good old Gravel. And do you know what happens is, right? Publishers just copy each other. That's all they do. They copy each other. There's no independent thought there. It's really down to developers taking risks. Publishers don't take risks. So a publisher will say, look, that sim sold really well. We're going to release a sim. That sim sold really well. We'll release a sim. And it kind of goes like that. But this year you have, obviously you've got Flat Out coming out. You've got Gravel. You've got Red Out coming. Maybe some other indie titles as well. So by the end of the year, there should be a fair little selection of non-serious titles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We need more of them at the moment. I do agree with you. It's very saturated with realistic, serious sim racers at the moment. But it's such a big year for racing games. We need that balance, I think.
Yeah.
Cater for different audiences because not everyone enjoys sim racing.
Yeah, we've got a fair amount coming. We've got 2 arcade-style bike games. We've got Wipeout. We've got Grip. So there is quite a few there.
Formula Fusion.
We just need release dates for these.
Obviously, Wreckfest. He's asked for Sega
Fusion.
Rally. Obviously, Gravel is basically Sega Rally in all but name, almost. But there's not really any arcade rally games apart from Gravel, is there, that we know of?
No.
Dirt 4, let's face it, it's kind of the best of both worlds, almost.
Yeah, you kind of got Dirt 4, and you've got WRC that tries to cater for a bit of everything, really. And then you've got Dirt Rally for the, or Dirt 4's hardcore mode for the, the hardcore.
And that is all the questions this week. Wow. We've been let off easily this week. But yes, do keep your questions coming in, everyone. I think that's it then for this podcast, unless anyone else has anything to add.
Yeah, just wanted to say we've got a chat on Flat Out 4 coming up hopefully tomorrow as you listen to this podcast, so do look out for that. Yep,
definitely one to watch. But yeah, that's it from us now then. Thanks as always for listening, and if you have any questions, do send them to us on our social media channels and we'll do our best to answer them. But until then, we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.